Hey guys, and welcome back to my Golfit tutorial series. Today we're going to take a look at the game's importer and how you can add your own custom assets to the game. So to access the importer, you're going to want to go to the level editor from the main menu. From here, hit Import Asset to get to the asset browser. And here there are three tabs. We have Meshes, Sounds, and Materials. First, let's focus on the Materials tab. If you've never made any custom materials before, this of course will be empty for you. So to make a new material, you want to double click on this plus here. Once you're in the material editor, you can press and hold either the middle or the right mouse button to look around. You can also use WASD, Control, and Space to move around like you would in the map editor. Now on the right here is where we have our material settings. You can preview the texture on different surfaces like the wall or the pipe. You can change the opacity of the base to be masked or translucent. Change the physics of the material, which will affect things like the bounciness and the collision sound. And you can change the scale of the material. On the opacity properties, Masked gives you an opacity mask that can show and hide parts of the material. If we scroll down, we can see our opacity mask here. It's important to keep in mind that white is opaque and black is transparent. Translucent is similar to masked, but with the addition of gray values that allow you to have partial transparency. So making the base opaque, we can take a look at the base color, which is essentially the image texture that will be used for the material. If we click on it, we can choose something else. Here we have three tabs: Recent Imports, Custom Folder, and Game Folder. We haven't imported anything yet, so the Imported tab will be empty. The Game Folder has plenty of assets already for you to use and can be combined to make unique textures. So let's make one. So we're going to go into the Textures folder here, and I'm going to go with, scroll around, see all the different things we have to work with. I'm going to do Grass 5. Now normal is essentially the image map that tells the game where to create highlights and shadows to make your texture feel 3D. So if we click on this and go into the game folder, under the normals folder, you can choose any of these that you like, and you can create some pretty interesting combinations. So for instance, we have grass as our background, but if we do something different for the normal map, such as lava, we get this interesting sort of bumpy material. My personal favorite, however, is Grass 1 Extra. It tends to make the texture look like a type of turf or carpet almost, and I usually like my textures to look more like actual turf. So going down the sliders here, we have Roughness, Specular, and Metallic. Roughness and Specular most of the time will go hand in hand. Roughness is of course how rough the texture appears to be, and Specular is how shiny or reflective it is. And of course Metallic is simply how metallic do you want it to look. So for mine, I'm going to turn the Metallic down, turn the Specular mostly down, and we'll have the Roughness mostly down as well. Now emissive texture simply adds a glow effect on top of the material. If we have a black emissive texture, we can come down to the emissive overlay settings and we can make it glow a certain color. So if we up this value and up this value, so you can have any different color we want and it will glow that color that we choose. So for now, I'm going to have that off. And while we're down here, we can also change the overlay color mask as well. This is referring to this mask here. And we can change the color of that. You can see our checkerboard texture coming through to any color you'd like. And of course, if we click on this and go into the masks folder, we can choose something completely different. So messing around with the settings a little bit here, I've come to this and I think I like it pretty well. If you want to add a custom image as your base color, you do that by accessing the custom folder. This of course will be empty if you've never imported anything before, so we'll need to add an image. To do this, you need to head over to your File Explorer to locate your Golfit folder. So here in my File Explorer, we need to go to this file path. We go to PC, Local Disk C, then Users, then your user folder, and then App Data. Now if you don't see this folder, you need to come up to View and make sure you have hidden items checked. So go into App Data. From here we go to Local, scroll all the way down to Golfit, Saved, Importer, and finally Textures. Now this is optional, but I would highly recommend going back to the Golfit folder here and pinning it to quick access. I've already done that here on the side, you can see. So that way I don't have to go finding it every time I need to add something. I can just click and there it is. So in the texture folder, any image we put in here will show up in the game's custom folder. So just for fun, I'm going to add this image that I made for my Minecraft profile. So I'll go ahead and copy that and throw that into the textures folder. Now we go back into Golfit and we refresh the folder. We can see that our image is there. So go ahead and add that. Now keep in mind that that texture folder is also where you can put custom normal maps and opacity masks as well. So I'm going to adjust a couple things here. I'm going to get rid of the overlay mask, and I think I'm going to scale it up a little bit. And I'll change the physics to, we'll just do grass, just like the normal lane. And once you have the settings the way you want it, click on import. You can name it and click on import once again. Now from here, we can open up a map and add our texture by hitting tab and going to the custom tab on the right. Here, just click the gear icon next to the material you want to change, go into the custom folder, and select the material that we just made. And now once we add a lane, you can see it's got our custom material. Alright, so to add custom sounds or music, we need to go back to the Golfit folder. And of course back into the importer folder. Here's where you drop your audio files, and you have to make sure that they're .ogg, otherwise the importer will not be able to read them. Here I've got a bunch of royalty-free music I want to use, and I think I'm going to go with Hackbeat. We're going to go with this one. Now if it's not a .ogg, in this case it's an MP3, we can use a free service online that will convert the audio for you. In this case, there's a website I found called freeconvert.com/mp3 to OGG, and I found this just by simply Googling MP3 to OGG converter. So drag this into here and output to OGG, hit convert. Once that's done, we'll hit download and make sure we save it into the importer folder. So once it's in the importer folder, we want to go back into Golfit and into the importer. And once we're in the importer, we go to the sounds tab, and from here, simply find our audio file. So there it is, Hackbeat. Click on that and hit import. You can rename it if you'd like, but Hackbeat's fine. We'll hit import, and that's that. Now to add to our map, we want to open up one of our custom maps. And once we're in our map, we want to go to our level settings and go to audio. And from here, we want to find the music that we imported. Here it is here. And we want to drag it over to our music column. If we scroll back up, we can see in our music, we have Hackbeat added. And if we go back to our level settings and go to general, music selected, we can see we now have Hackbeat as an option. So we can select that. And if we change the editor music to our map music, you can now hear that we have our Hackbeat music playing in the map. Hit back, save level, and if we go ahead and play, you can hear our custom music starts playing. Alright, so importing custom objects. Now this can be a little tricky, but just follow along closely and you should be fine. Now I don't know about you guys, but I am not a 3D modeler. I've dabbled in it here and there, but the best I can usually do is simple shapes with no shading. So we're going to find a free 3D model from a site like CG Trader. Now there's lots of free models on this website, and to download them, you're going to need to have an account. But you can easily sign up just using your Gmail or your Facebook accounts. Now I find this pretty cool looking UFO on here, so we're going to add it to the game. The great thing about this model in particular is that it has all the material properties baked in, so we really don't have to mess with that a whole lot, which makes things much easier. Now make sure whatever model you download that you get the OBJ version, otherwise Golfit will not be able to read it. And of course save it in the importer like everything else. Once it's downloaded, we're going to open it with our zip reader of choice. In my case that's WinRAR. Here we're going to grab the low poly model, the OBJ file, and we're just going to import that into our importer folder. And all these image files, these PNGs, we're going to extract those into the texture folder. That way we can access those later using the custom folder within the game when we're applying the materials. Once we've done that, we're going to go back into Golfit and to the importer screen. And under the meshes tab, we should be able to see our low poly UFO that we've just added. So we're going to double click on that to open it in the importer. Once here, it's going to ask which asset we want to import. In this case, we're just going to do the low-poly-UFO.obj and click Next. Here, it's going to have us adjust any settings and whether or not it has collision. So we'll just leave that to yes. And it's looking a little small, so I'm going to adjust the scale to something like 3. And also, let's change the offset so that the center of the grid lines up with the center of our object. Once it's looking good, go ahead and hit Next. Now, depending on the image texture files, there are several different ways you might want to apply the material. In our case, there was a separate image texture for the glowing parts, so we're going to go with emissive. From here, we're going to fill out our 4 parts, starting with our base color. Here, we can access our custom folder and scroll down to the UFO materials that we've imported earlier. Now, keep in mind that the image file names may not be exactly a match with what you're using. For instance, we're going to use this one titled UFO Diffuse, despite this being the base color, since it appears to have the correct image texture for our base. Now we're going to do the same for our normal map, our ambient occlusion, which in this case I think I'm going to go with UFO Diffuse 2, and of course our emissive texture. Once we have these, you can see it's looking pretty good. We can also adjust a few things on these sliders if we want. So I'm going to give it a bit more metallic and increase the specular to really drive home that this is a shiny metal saucer. And don't forget to change your physics settings to something that makes sense, and in the case of our UFO, we'll just go with metal. Now before we hit finish, we're going to want to frame it up nice, as this screen will be captured for the preview image in the object selection screen. And once it's looking good, we'll hit finish, and from here, we'll give it a name, we'll just call it UFO, and hit save and quit. Now to add this to our map, we'll go back and open our map. I'll go ahead and hit tab and go all the way to the bottom under the imported assets tab. This is also where you'll go if you download any models from the workshop. But to find our UFO, we want to scroll all the way down to the bottom, and here we can see our UFO. At this point, we simply add it like it's any other object. And you see here, we can even scale and rotate it just like it's any other object in the game. And if we go ahead and place it somewhere on the course itself, we can see that the ball will interact with it, since we've determined it to be a physical object. And you can hear the metal twang it makes when we bounce off of it, since we've applied the texture to be metal. Now you might be wondering, can we use custom objects as rotation objects? The answer is yes. Though for some reason, when it comes to custom objects, changing the offset doesn't do anything to it. I'm not sure the reasoning for this, but you can still rotate it along different axes just like you would any other rotation object. Now you can also use custom objects for master transformers, but unfortunately you cannot use them for timed rotations. So that's about it for the importer. Hopefully you were able to follow along and everything made at least some sense. If you have any questions about importing, leave them in the comments below and I'll do my best to help. And also let me know if you have any requests for certain topics you'd like for me to cover in a future tutorial. With that being said, thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.